Today we will be discussing the vast biodiversity that makes up planet Earth. Biodiversity is made up of all the living things on planet Earth, from the fish that we catch, to the birds that we see, and many, many more living organisms. Researchers have estimated that there are between 3 to 30 million species on Earth. Some studies even predict that there may be over 100 million species on Earth. Currently, there have only been 1.7 million species identified, so there is still a long way to go before figuring out how many species are on Earth total. There tends to be more biodiversity within tropical ecosystems than temperate ecosystems. Tropical rainforests have the most diversity out of any ecosystem on Earth. The most diverse group of animals are invertebrates. Invertebrates are animals without backbones, including insects, sponges, scorpions, and many other kinds of organisms, with beetles being some of the most numerous species. Over half of all the animals already identified are invertebrates. Science has much more to learn about the biodiversity of microscopic organisms like bacteria and continues to study these organisms today. Biodiversity can be studied on many different levels in the scientific community. At the highest level, a person can look at all the different species on the entire planet of Earth. On a much smaller level, a person can study biodiversity with respect to a much smaller scale than the entire planet of Earth. For example, a person can study the biodiversity within a pond ecosystem, a neighborhood park, or a small forest. Identifying and understanding the relationships between all the life on Earth are some of the greatest challenges in science. Biodiversity is usually recognized by different species. A species is a group of living organisms that can interbreed successfully. Examples of species include orca whales, black bears, maple trees, dandelions, and microscopic bacteria that cannot be seen with only the human eye. Biodiversity includes the full range of species that live in an area. Let's take a quick look at the species biodiversity within a local pond you might find in your area. At first glance, one can identify different plants, including cattails and algae around the pond. If one looks even further, they might be able to spot a water snake, a bullfrog, or maybe a goose. With an even closer look, one can see invertebrates and other small organisms under leaves, on grasses, in brush, and in the pond water. Even after all these organisms in the pond have been spotted, the surface of the biodiversity within the pond ecosystem has not even been scratched. Using a microscope, one would be able to see hundreds or even thousands of different bacteria that inhabit the pond water. They are all part of the species biodiversity of this small pond ecosystem and are all very important to the life of the pond ecosystem. Species diversity is only one aspect of biodiversity. To properly organize all the life on planet Earth, one also has to recognize the genetic diversity that exists within a species, as well as the diversity of an entire ecosystem or habitat as a whole. Genetic biodiversity is the variation in genes that exists within a species. An easy way to understand genetic diversity is to think about cats. All cats are part of the same species, but their genes can dictate whether they are a Siamese or American Shorthair cat. There can be a very large number of variation in genes. Think about all the colors, size, and shapes that make up the genetic diversity of cats. Ecological biodiversity is the diversity of ecosystems, natural communities, and habitats. Essentially, it's the variety of ways that species interact with each other and their environment. The forests of northeast Canada differ from the forests of Colorado by the types of species found in both ecosystems, as well as the temperature, rainfall, and other factors. These two seemingly similar ecosystems have a lot of differences that make them both special and unique in their own way. Biodiversity is extremely important to people, the health of ecosystems, and virtually any living thing on planet Earth. Biodiversity allows us to live healthy and happy lives. It does this by providing us with an array of foods and materials while contributing to the economy. Without a diversity of pollinators, plants, and soils, grocery stores would have a lot less produce. Most medical discoveries to cure diseases and lengthen lifespans are made because of research into plant and animal biology and genetics. Every time a species goes extinct or genetic diversity is lost, we will never know whether research would have given us a new vaccine or drug to help better life on planet Earth. Biodiversity is an important part of ecological services that make life livable on Earth. They include everything from cleaning water and absorbing chemicals, which can be done by wetlands, to providing oxygen for us to breathe, which is one of the many functions that plants have to help people. Biodiversity also allows for ecosystems to adjust to disturbances like extreme fires and floods. If a reptile species goes extinct, a forest with 20 other reptiles is likely to adapt better than another forest with only one reptile. Genetic diversity prevents diseases and helps species adjust to changes in the environment. There are few things as beautiful and inspiring as the diversity of life that exists on Earth, so it is important to protect and preserve our biodiversity here that is present. One of the biggest and most obvious threats to biodiversity here on planet Earth is extinction. Extinction is a natural part of the life cycle here on planet Earth. Over the long history on planet Earth, most of the species that have existed have evolved to different forms of species and then gradually went extinct over some period of time. Species go extinct due to the natural shifts in the environment that take place over long periods of time. For example, ice ages and other extreme shifts in the Earth's environment. Today, species are going extinct at a dangerous and accelerated rate than what has been seen in the past. Today, this accelerated rate of extinction is believed to be caused by all the non-natural environmental changes caused by human activities. Some of these human activities have indirect but wide-reaching and very harmful effects on biodiversity. One major factor in extinction today is climate change. Earth's climate is always changing, but the increased release of pollution and other climate-changing materials since the Industrial Revolution has been believed to speed up climate change. Another human activity that is harmful to Earth's biodiversity is the urban movement. Today, humans are striving more and more for urban areas around planet Earth. Deforestation can be seen all over the world and in some places is dangerously high. In order to make these urban areas, natural habitats have to be altered and in some cases even destroyed, leaving the biodiversity that was once in that area with no place to live. These human activities lead to habitat loss and degradation, which is very harmful to the biodiversity here on planet Earth. Human activity that is harmful to the biodiversity on Earth is over-exploitation. A good example of this is overfishing, which has been seen in areas around planet Earth before. Little to no regulation on the fisheries in certain areas has led to fishermen catching the fish at a higher rate than they can reproduce, which can lead to a severe decline in the fish population in that area, sometimes causing the fish species to go extinct. Other over-exploitation can come from little regulation on hunting, gathering, trapping, and many more related human activities. A third human activity that is harmful to biodiversity is the spread of invasive species and disease. Daily human activities such as boating, farming, and shipping lumber can all cause the spread of invasive species and disease. These invasive items, when introduced into new habitats, can reproduce at mass numbers and choke out biodiversity that was once present in that area. Today, we see regulations and restrictions put in place by government agencies to help reduce and prevent the spread of invasive species and disease in an effort to conserve the biodiversity that is present on planet Earth. All of these threats mentioned have put a serious strain and restrictions on the diversity of species we see here today on Earth. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, worldwide about 1/3 of all known species are threatened with extinction. This number includes 29% of all amphibians, 21% of all mammals, and 12% of all birds. If the threats to biodiversity are not reduced or stopped, we could be facing another mass extinction with enormous consequences to the environment and human health and livelihood. The biodiversity we have here on planet Earth is truly an outstanding and beautiful aspect of the world we live in. It provides so much for not only humans but all living organisms on the planet and benefits Earth in a very positive way. Today we need to focus on preserving the biodiversity we have and preventing biodiversity loss to ensure that there will be many more beautiful years to come on Earth.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed?